Today I had the pleasure of interviewing a gentleman I know quite well. He happens to be a guy called Anthony Hockley. And Anthony Hockley is the head of Crocodile Martial Arts here in Adelaide, but he's also the president of the Australasian Martial Arts Hall of Fame, and he's also a 10-dan black belt in Kenpo Karate. He's also very well versed in archery and other forms of martial arts weaponry and that type of stuff as well. Now, he's quite a deep person. He also is somebody who does not like getting in front of the camera, but I finally convinced him to actually sit down with me and have a little bit of a chat about his philosophies with martial arts. He's a classic, astrologically speaking, he's the classic deep-thinking Mars. Although he's a Pisces, he's very scorpionic in a lot of ways, very much like that Bruce Lee, you know, deep in thought, deep in understanding, but has a heart of gold, knows his stuff very, very well. And I wanted to share some of his philosophies with everybody, and just have a look deeper into how that works, because he's a classic example of an astrological Mars in a positive sense working, and all of the traumas and stuff that we have to go through in order to get there. But here's my interview with Anthony, and enjoy that. So today I've got a friend of mine staying with me, Anthony Hockley. And Anthony happens to be the head of Crocodile Martial Arts here in Adelaide, but he's also been a martial artist for how many years, Anthony?
46.
46 years. He's a very private person, very hard to get in front of a camera, I can assure you of that. So what I'm wanting to do today is go through a little bit of the history of how he got into martial arts and how the philosophies of those things not only tie in with philosophy in general, or energy and the transference of energy, and it also is in its own way not just a sport, but a lifestyle and a way of life that especially young children who are needing some sort of guidance or some sort of I would nearly say, what would you call it, like a philosophy to live by?
Yeah, I think everyone needs a mentor.
Everyone needs a mentor. I do agree with that.
Father figures, because they don't have them. So
that's exactly right. So Anthony's history is he's a 10th Dan black belt in Kenpo Karate, but he can probably give you a little bit of it. He's also the current president of the Australasian Martial Arts Hall of Fame, and you are a member of that too, aren't you? Oh, yeah. Otherwise, you wouldn't be the president. Yep. Funny that. And there's also been in martial arts, as he said, for 46 years. Has a history of working in security companies. He was in the military, done a lot of different things. And those of you who want to know from an astrological point of view, he's a Piscean with a Gemini rising. He doesn't believe this, but I tell him that makes him very clever. And at the same time, he's got his moon in Sagittarius and late degrees conjunct Mars in Capricorn. So that's where he gets that definite desire for combat, or for form and order and that type of thing. What we don't know about Anthony is he's also a very good archer, and has had a lot of success in archery. And basically what I've noticed of Anthony, one of the reasons I wanted to interview him today, was that he's highly spiritual, and sometimes is very, what's the word for it, a little bit, you might take your time in order to let people know, or let them in to that side of his life. So I wanted to get a little bit of background, and I think basically I'd like to start with, Anthony, you train a lot of kids. I mean, Crocodile Martial Arts is a very family-orientated business. You've had that for how long now?
We started back in 2010, full-time.
2010?
So, yeah, but I've been teaching martial arts since I was 13 years old. So, it's been a while now.
He's been teaching martial arts since 13.
Yeah. So
give you an idea. And what made you decide to go into teaching kids? Like, what was the main reason, and what do you think is the benefit for children?
I mean, we have a good ratio of kids and adults, but for me, martial arts, honestly, is just about helping people. So whether it's kids or adults, I think everyone benefits. For me, I didn't talk about it for a long time because I didn't know I struggled all through school. I've had Asperger's syndrome, and I'm dyslexic. So martial arts basically taught me how to read, because my mum would read the martial arts magazines to me, so I had to learn myself.
Okay.
And that's one thing I don't really share with people, but I do now. And I've had students with me since I was 6 years old. They're in their 20s. I've had people come through with special needs and stuff, and they grow from the martial arts. And I think that's a thing. Martial arts for everybody. Doesn't matter what your nationality is, the colour of your skin. It brings everybody together, and that's what I love about it. So for kids, I think martial arts for kids is the best thing you can do for your kid, because it's not about the kicking and the punching. It's about everything else they learn. Self-discipline, confidence, the coordination. It improves so many different areas. So for me, I just love martial arts. I love helping people. That's and I get to do that every day. So it's probably the best job I can have. So
that's awesome. And that's the thing. What I love about Anthony. One of the things that when we met, and we met through our partners, went to school together, and at the same time, in talking to Anthony, there's been a lot of things that just come out in conversation. When you're talking to someone, you say, this guy's quite on the ball. He's very intuitive. He may not talk too much. Often, in conversation, we're sitting around and he's the guy quiet at the table, but he's he's taking in everything around him and analysing it. Yes. We've also had some very strong conversations, not strong, interesting conversations, I would say, in regards to things like spiritual guidance that come from outside.
I mean, martial arts there's no sort of religious thing in martial arts. Not the forms that I do. Other than in Japanese archery and in Japan, in Kudo, there is a side to that which that comes in archery. But it's just about personal growth. Martial arts really is about making better people, and challenges the belt systems and stuff. And most that have, it's not about the belts; it's about the journey and the rewards that come from it. So, as far as any religious side or that sort of stuff in the martial arts, I don't think that really comes into it. But I think in some ways, we're trying to work on perfection and reach enlightenment in some way. And I think that we're all trying to improve ourselves, and martial arts is a good tool to do that.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I found with Anthony, we've talked quite considerably about whether you call it coincidence, but here's a gentleman who was very much into martial arts, but he's always also been very much into archery, and archery really is one of your passions, isn't it?
Yeah, archery is something that I love to do. What actually happened, if I'm to be completely honest, I went through a period of time there where, after I went through a marriage breakup and losing basically contact with my youngest children, I suffered from depression. Since then, I've been happily married for 15 years and with a new partner, with family and stuff, and that's great. But I battled the old demons there for a while. How to cope with losing family, loved ones, and everything changing. And archery was helped me focus. It was I needed to get away from everything that I did before. I mean, I still did the martial arts, but I needed something for me. It's just funny that somehow I ended up also getting a black belt in archery in Japan, in Kudo, which is one of the oldest forms of archery. And I did that at the highest level. I competed in Japan and Tokyo and world championships, and first person to represent Australia and stuff. And then I come back from that and decided that I love this archery stuff. So I wanted to get into traditional archery, no compound stuff, no sights and stabilizers and all that sort of stuff. It was just more traditional. So old school, like American Indian style. Love the longbow, love the horsebow and all that sort of stuff, and bedlow recurves. And so I just competed in everything, and that was my way of focusing on something and battling the emotions of, with
own demons.
Basically, yeah. And it taught me to focus. And then going in competition was something I was doing every month. Everything from indoor archery to the cloud archery, shooting into the sky and hitting targets from 145 meters away, to 3D animal field target archery. It's like hunting, just walking around in the fields and stuff and getting the exercise, but clearing my mind and stuff. And it just helped me, and I've had a lot of success with my archery.
And where did you do most of that sort of training and work?
Well, the Kudo I did in Japan, and also in Perth. That's where I started, in Perth. And then it was trips between who was the president of Obama at the stage, Raymond. He was teaching me Japanese sword and Jodo, which is the staff, and introduced me also to judo, to archery, and I like that, and I ended up going that direction instead. Or I was in Japan and studying in Japan and training and grading and competing, and then that's just sort of fused because I've always had a fascination with American Indians, so I always liked the bow and arrow even as a kid, and I did touch on it a few times. And currently writing a book at the moment on archery and traditional firing blades and all sort of stuff. So that was my way of therapy as well, I suppose, is writing, because I'm dyslexic. It's hard for me to write.
That's right.
But it's been a challenge, and I'm definitely getting there. So yes, there's been something that I love to do.
He's one of those people that just picked it up and it was natural. It was like it took to him rather than the other way around. And interested, do you mind if I share with people a little bit about what I would call some spiritual guidance from the other side that we've sort of discovered? The interesting thing here is that there's a lady that I know who called Wendy, and Wendy is an amazing lady at producing what we call spirit guide pictures. So in other words, she channels very, very interesting philosophies. Wendy is one of those. It's one of those things, I suppose, as an individual growing up, you wonder whether these things are real, and I say it with that inverted commas. You wonder whether this is you just sort of, were they making this stuff up? All that sort of stuff that goes through it. But when I first met Wendy, she had no idea I was an astrologer. In actual fact, I was probably not doing too much about it. And at the time, I went along to get a spirit guide drawing done, and her, unbeknownst to me, or I should say she didn't know that I knew, that from a very young child, I always felt that I had a spiritual guide around me, and other people I'd known had actually seen this person, including ex-partners, friends of mine who are now, professors at university, their mothers, name it, have all described the fact that there was this American Indian person around me, or like I looked like one standing there in an auric sense around. And from that point of view, the first person to ever draw a spirit guide around me drew a Hopi Indian. And with that Hopi Indian, she also drew an eagle and a few other bits and pieces, and drew the star patterns, and told me at the time, by holding my wrist and sitting there and just coming out with poetry, that my soul understood the messages of the stars, and that all of these little things around that picture, and I'll put this picture on the video, were all associated to the fact that I was attuned to the stars. And I knew the lessons of the stars, and I knew that as in that sort of sense. And she had no idea that I'd been studying astrology. And similarly, probably to Anthony here, he had, at 16 years of age, when I started teaching myself astrology, it all fell into place. A little bit like what he did with his archery. So anyway, I tell Anthony about this a couple of years back, and he decides to contact Wendy and get a couple of spirit drawings done. Now, just by chance, he always grew up thinking that he had an influence from samurais and an influence from American Indians, which you just heard. And she drew two pictures without knowing him, purely from a photograph. And one of them was of a samurai, and that person's name, and the other one was an American Indian. So would you like to was that a little bit of a shock to you from a point of view of that, or how did it make you feel from because it sort of puts into perspective and brings out a philosophy that you go, oh my God, there is some other essence around me that's not necessarily of this world that this person's picked up on. I mean, how did it make you feel?
Yeah, well, I'm going to say something else because I don't usually talk about it.
No, you don't.
I'm pretty
quiet about that sort of thing. Yes.
When I studied Reiki, Tsui Reiki, and I'm a massage therapist, and so I'm pretty open-minded when it comes to certain energy, especially with energy and obviously with Reiki. So it was a 15-year journey for me to become a Reiki master, and when I thought I was ready, I went to someone else, and this person that I met, who I just met, asked me a question, And I'll share the story with you. I'm going to share it because some people think you're crazy, but you know what? It is what it is.
Yes.
And then it relates to the pictures.
That's exactly right.
Anyway, what happened was, she came and taught me in my martial arts school. And she said to me that you want to ask me something. No. She goes, yeah, you want to ask me something? I'm like, no. She said, stop being shy. She goes, if you're not going to ask me, I'm just going to tell you. And that's where she told me that I had some spirit guides around me. She told me I had 4. And one was a samurai who was pretty tall and wore red armor. And another one was American Indian, which she told me I'd been several times. And there was a lady in the back, but I don't know about that. And there was also a knight. And anyway, so when Wendy did these drawings, I already sort of had that told to me, but it wasn't just from her. I went to some other places and, they had body mind psych sort of stuff. And people had told me the same thing. I'd had my horror photos taken and stuff. And so then when I get the picture back from Wendy, it's, and I even told you before, done. It was a samurai. It was tall. It was wearing red armor. And it was an Indian. I have a fascination with Indians. And, on my arm, I have all the American Indian stuff. I don't know if you can see this here, but I have it all on here.
And this was prior.
Yeah, so it's all my Indian stuff. And so this thing with eagles. And, the Indian picture is drawn with an eagle, basically, over them and stuff. So
basically what this did, and I've watched this with Anthony from a distance, I should say, there's an element of, not only is he a Reiki master, and obviously therefore working with energy, but also working with energy. And this is what I was going down the path of in regards to, dealing with, call it the black dog, wouldn't you? Or the wolves, depending on which wolf you want to feed, the good one or the bad one. So you can either be,
which is
also on his arm. But these lessons that we have in life come in various forms. Now, I know this is an astrology channel, but the reason for it is because astrology shows us these these cycles that come around and how they affect us. Most people do not sit there and consult their astrology program every second day to find out why they're feeling a certain way. They just live their lives. But what we find as astrologers is we can often go back and we can say, oh, okay, I can see what's happening here. I can see what happened to this particular person at this point in time. I understand the underlying energies. I understand the underlying lessons. I understand what they were going through. And out of that is born experience. And that experience creates philosophies and understandings. And what I love about Anthony is that he has a heart. He has the capacity to actually teach, but teach in such a way that it comes across where people get benefit from it. People return to his school. People grow through the relationship with his school. And I think that is an important thing for all young students. Doesn't matter what it is of, but in this case, martial arts. But do you want to give us a little bit more about maybe even a couple of examples of when I said things like Anthony is great with the bow and arrow. Take us through what happened to you, because don't forget, this is a guy who's all of a sudden thrown into a competition. Oh, yeah, I'll just enter it, see what happens. And then he ends up winning it without much experience at all, which I love. So these are the sorts of things that happen when we're on our right path. That's probably the best way. Do you want to share a bit of a story about, when you first went into your first competition, how you felt?
Yeah, what I did was, actually, there's a story there. So yeah, I was talking to my wife about archery, and I said, look, one day I'm going to represent Australia. I said, well, maybe the Olympics, just talking in general. Then I end up in Japan, becoming the first Australian to ever shoot in the World Championships, and become a finalist. And at the time, I had a torn tendon in my back, and I cut my hand 10 minutes before I competed. And in Kudo, you hold 2 arrows, so that was the finger that has to hold the other arrows. So, that's sort of like the spark that I've really enjoyed, that competition side. And then I come back, and in my first year of joining Archery Australia, So I was actually joined a whole heap of different clubs at once. I was going from one club to the other because it was helping me.
Trying to find your way?
Yeah, I was. And I tried all the different bows to find out what I was going to use, and ended up using a longbow. And my first year, I went in all the state championships and I won all those. And then I won for the longbow division. I won the award for Archer of the Year for Archery SA for my division. And then last year, I competed in my first Masters Games. And
last year being 2023, for those who want to know.
Yeah, my first time competing in Masters Games, Australian Masters Games, the 3D, which is my favourite thing. Happened to be at one of the clubs that I was a member, which I hadn't shot at for a while. And I ended up winning the Australian Championship for that, which was probably a highlight for me. So, which is good because it's the one thing I like to do is an archery.
So look out for him in the future in the archery field, because he's only really just starting to get. When did you start in archery? Wasn't that long ago?
Well, Kudo I started in 2000 end of 2014.
Okay, so about 10 years.
But as far as bare bow archery, traditional, what you refer to as traditional archery, probably around 2019.
Yeah.
So
it's not that. It's never too late, is what we're trying to say. Okay. So trying to keep it fairly short, Anthony. If you were a young person who had an interest in martial arts and or archery, what would be the best advice you'd give them as to what to do going forward? And what have you learnt the most out of all of the things that you've experienced in your 46 years of doing martial arts and the last 10 years of getting into a passion that you love?
About the start of martial arts. I mean, first thing is I never wanted to do martial arts. I wanted to be a boxer, and it was my mother said no way, and it ended up being a family friend that worked with my dad that got me into martial arts. So I sort of had my own Mr. Miyagi, and from day one I studied more than one martial art. So
which ones did you study?
I studied Shaolin Kung Fu, so 5 Animal Kung Fu. I also did Chen style Tai Chi, which probably helped with my healing stuff down the track as well, and Qigong. I also studied Kodokan Judo and then later Judo, and then it was followed by Filipino martial arts and went from there. And what actually happened was my instructor got injured at work, and he's a young kid that ended up having to run the school while he sort of watching it because he was sort of backwards going for life. He never worked again. So, especially in my 20s, I was running 9 schools and, trying to learn everything I could because I thought
that's a fairly big, throwing the deep end type scenario.
My idea was, well, if I learn everything I can and train them everything I can, my students will never leave me because I'll have everything I can teach them, which doesn't work that way.
No.
Which I found out. But I've always trained in everything and I just love martial arts in general, so I don't care what style it is. But I'd say the biggest thing for people coming to the martial arts is, what do you actually like? Do some research and go, okay, do you like the idea of doing grappling techniques like on the ground or stand up? So then you want to look at arts like jiu-jitsu or judo, which, that sort of stuff. Do you like the kicking and punching, or do you like the hitting the bags and stuff a lot, like the kickboxing, Muay Thai stuff, or do you like stuff like taekwondo? Or do you like the weapons, the idea of, training with weapons and, like whether it be in ninjutsu, following those warrior paths, or the Filipino arts with sticks and knives and that. So you need to do your research. You need to have a look at a school that, has a good reputation, has a bit of history. Mm-hmm. You want to know the instructor's qualifications because unfortunately, there's a lot of shonkies in this world.
Yes.
And so that, it's the cost. How close is it? I mean, I have people that travel 2.5 hours to come to my school.
Yeah.
They're in their 60s.
Yeah.
And then travel 2.5 hours home. So you just need to do it for you. What do you want out of it? That's the first thing I ask, because it'd be pointless. You come to my school and say, oh, look, I want to do lots of competitions. I want to do lots of kicking and all sorts of stuff. And I go, well, it's not my school.
Yeah.
If you want to jiu-jitsu or Filipino stuff, Kenpo Karate, then that's what I do. But for you, if you want to do that, then maybe have a look at Taekwondo, because it's no good trying to keep someone in your school and waste their time and their money. You want to put them on the right path. So that's the advice I have.
A lot of it's about getting on the right path, isn't it?
Because, we're giving a service. We're here to serve. We're here to make a better community, and everyone has their own journey, and it's not about the black belts and all sort of stuff. That stuff comes. It's about the journey, And archery for me is the same thing. My cousin does a lot of archery. He uses the compound bows and all the bells and whistles and stuff on it, and he does very well. I mean, he does it really, really well. But that's not my thing. My thing is on the other end of the scale, where mine is a stick and a string, which is the hardest type. I like that. I like old school. I like the history.
It all depends on what you like, people.
Yeah. So you have to research, and then you go, okay, as a person, you're going to look after you and be training and learn the right way.
Yeah. Just jumping in there from an astrological point of view, warrior type stuff, martial arts, combat is all Mars ruled. Now, Anthony, as I said very early in the piece, has his Mars in Capricorn, and Capricorn's all about tradition and the old school. So here's a person telling you straight out that he prefers the old techniques. So he's living right through his Mars in his chart. For those who don't want a little bit of astrological stuff thrown in there. So, but I was also going to say you traveled a lot overseas, and you've studied overseas, and you've taught overseas. Is that something you'd recommend people do that are getting into martial arts, to learn from different cultures?
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest thing was going through my early years in martial arts. People say, you trained in Japan. What was Japan like? And I didn't know. Because, but they come in and they expect you to look like Bruce Lee, and they think you should be Asian just because my name's Hockley. It's not, I'm not Asian, but I train in the Asian arts, and I'd never done that. So going to Japan and training in Japan was one of the highlights for me.
Amazing.
It was great. It's like, because you've got old school and new school Japan. And I like everything old school, to be honest, like technology like this for me. I don't even know how to turn this on. It's not my thing.
He's doing okay.
Yeah. I don't know how you got twisted my arm to get me on here, but anyway, I'm on here.
Yeah. But I didn't use an elbow technique or anything.
But as far as traveling and learning overseas, it's been great. I mean, spent a lot of time in America. I now have black belt students in the US. Yeah. I have a lot of family members in America. We know a lot of people. My wife and I traveled there for martial arts, to do business conferences and stuff, and to learn and to bring it back, the latest technology in our school. And it's been great. I've been to Denmark.
And you've met lots of people who are quite well known in the martial arts area as well.
Yeah, I've met lots of celebrities and stuff with martial arts. But it's funny because, you have people that, when I started martial arts, they were in the Black Belt magazine and stuff, and I was looking at them and I idolised them, and all of a sudden, they're friends and they're in the same rooms learning stuff as me.
Well, it's interesting.
I've got kids, taking notes.
You talk about, and I'll throw a person in there like Benny the Jet, and you talk about the fact that he's American Indian or Native American background. So interestingly enough, this is what I find is people's energies cross paths for reasons. So you had, you've met him and worked and trained with him.
I graded under him.
Well, you graded under him. I was going to say, you're doing all right if you graded him.
No.
Not quite.
He's very spiritual in his background with his American Indian stuff. And had some really good conversations with him. But then my role model in martial arts was actually Chuck Norris.
There you go.
And Chuck Norris has American Indian background as well. And, having to wait, 40 years to actually meet my idol. And then when I did meet him, he was everything I thought he'd be.
Yes.
I've known so many people that have trained with him. Some of my teachers have trained with him and met him and are good friends. So to meet him, meet your role model and go.
And your idol.
Yeah, it's just, he was my mentor because he was everything that I looked for in martial arts, was being humble and being kind to everyone and, shake everyone's hand and greet them with a smile, and that's, for me, that's what the martial arts is about. It's not about that.
And that's exactly what it should be. And so for those who we all criticize Mars as an energy. We turn around and say it's aggressive, it's this, it's evasive, it's divisive, it causes all these things, but it also gives you focus. It also gives you the capacity to grow, create, change, and start new projects, which is part and parcel of it, and also builds on those philosophies. But Anthony, I reckon you're uncomfortable enough in front of a camera, so I reckon I'm going to get him off here now. But anyone who wants more information or wants to know a bit about his school, or even just have that conversation, just put some comments down the bottom here, or contact me, and we can put you in touch with Anthony. But here's somebody who's got some great philosophies, a great work ethic, and an absolute champion of a person. Love him to bits, and I'm glad he decided to jump on here and have a bit of a chat. All right, mate, you take care.